A sewage pump is part of an underground operation to dispose of human waste. It is essential equipment when sewage must be pumped to a septic system or sewer line at a higher underground location. Working below the surface, sewage pumps take care of unpleasant business. When it comes to sewage, people understandably prefer to flush and forget. The sewage pump helps make that possible. It is the #1 way to move waste. When the sewage reaches a certain level upon discharge, the pump's floating sensor activates a switch to start pumping. Then it's on its way to a septic system or sewer line, ensuring that sewage receives the necessary treatment. They make the sewage pump housing from a rugged cast iron. A chain conveyor takes the housing parts for a rinse, and an application of a chemical that slightly etches the surface in preparation for finishing. The journey continues through a big dryer that removes residual moisture. The parts now head into the spray booth for a finish that will protect the surface. The conveyor delivers a negative charge to the parts, causing the positively charged powder finish to gravitate to them. It completely coats the parts, and they travel through an oven to bake on the powder finish. Next, workers move the pump housing units across to a spinning abrasive disc. This grinds the edges flat to allow for a tight seal to other parts. Here's the housing before grinding, and here it is after. He places a gauge under the part in several places to ensure that it's completely even. Next, a tool machines the part of the housing that holds the stator, the stationary part of the motor. It carves the opening so that the stator will fit to it, and also a line next to the motor housing. Using a drill press, a worker cuts a thread into another part of the pump. This will allow it to connect to a discharge pipe. The parts are now ready for assembly. A worker presses the carbon half of a seal for the rotor shaft into place. He lubricates the rotor shaft and inserts it into the pump housing. A blast of compressed air removes any contaminants, and he installs the ceramic half of the rotor shaft seal. Next, he screws the impeller to the rotor shaft. The impeller will move sewage from the pumping chamber to the discharge pipe. He installs an O-ring around the opening to the motor. He inserts the stator and screws it into place. He connects lead wires to terminals in the motor housing and sets it in place. He runs the power cord through the motor housing and tightens a seal around the cord. He attaches a metal guard to give the pump float adequate clearance, then seals the motor housing and wires the pump switch. He screws the switch case to the housing. A worker plugs in the pump to test for any shorts in the electrical components. The pump passes all the tests. It's ready for the float that actuates the pump switch. A piece has been cut out of this pump to give us an inside look at the sewage pump and its operation. As wastewater rises, so does the float, and it activates the switch to turn on the pump. When the sewage subsides, the float lowers and switches off the pump. Next, the pump takes the plunge in a test tank to ensure that it can handle the pressure and that it meets all the performance standards. Once the computer gives the sewage pump the green light, it's on its way to a septic system near you. Built for a life of effluence, the sewage pump is now ready to go with the flow.